The stench of overripe fruit and desperation clung to the air like rot in the midday heat of Galdren's lower bazaar. Merchants shouted beneath sagging tents, waving faded banners that fluttered with broken pride. Exotic animals cried from cages, and scents, both sweet and vile, mingled into a heady fog of commerce and cruelty. Traders passed through the labyrinthine market, their eyes hunting bargains, trinkets, and sometimes slaves. In the filth of the produce quarter, under a crumbling canopy, she sat. The blue-skinned girl was crouched amidst a bed of discarded fruits, plums, mallow roots, and fly-ridden torcos, half sunk into the fermenting mulch. Her hands were bound loosely in front of her with fraying cords. Her tattered bodice hung off her shoulders, offering no warmth nor modesty, and her long white hair was tangled with dirt and market grime. She kept her eyes low, yet there was an intensity beneath her downcast lids, as if she was waiting for something or someone. Her tag hung limply from the pole behind her. Lot 78. Untrained. Genus unknown, sold as is. No one had made an offer all day. Flies landed freely on her arms, on her neck, on her cheeks. She did not swat them away. A young child tried to poke her with a stick until his mother slapped his hand and dragged him off, whispering about cursed things. A rot-bellied merchant leaned against a nearby stall and muttered, "Should just put her out of her misery. She's not even worth feeding." The other traders laughed. They all assumed she was feral, perhaps even broken in the mind. But she was simply silent. No one saw the way her eyes flicked upward each time a new bootstep approached. No one noticed how her fingers flexed gently whenever the wind shifted. She was not lifeless, just overlooked. That was until the human arrived. He wore a long, dust-beaten coat, streaked with travel and ash. His boots bore signs of crossing many worlds, and a dented rifle was strapped across his back. He moved like a man who had seen too much and regretted none of it. Most humans didn't make it to this side of Galdren's rings, not unless they were running from something, or toward something. He moved slowly through the market, scanning each stall with deliberate attention. His eyes were the color of old steel, tired, sharp, and not easily fooled. He passed exotic pets, cybernetic implants, even rare spices with barely a glance. And then he saw her. He stopped, looked, really looked. She didn't flinch, didn't move, just met his gaze. Steadily, for the first time that day. The human crouched down beside her stall, swatting away a fly from her temple. "What's her price?" he asked, his voice rough like gravel and whiskey. The merchant hawking fruit nearby scoffed. "That one? You don't want her, traveler. Filthy thing. Hasn't spoken a word. Nobody even knows what she is. Found her in the ruins outside the East Rift, barely breathing." "I didn't ask for her story," the human said. "I asked for her price." The merchant shrugged. 5 credits, and she's yours. Hell, take her for free if you buy something real." The human stood slowly and reached into his coat. But he didn't hand over 5 credits. He handed over 500. The market stilled. Even the wind seemed to pause. The merchant's eyes bulged. That's a mistake." "It's not," the human cut in. "You never saw her value. That's not her fault." Without another word, he unfastened her bindings. She didn't resist, only blinked and stood with an eerie grace, as though she'd been waiting for this moment all her life. He placed his coat gently around her shoulders. They walked out of the market together, side by side. That night, they camped on the edge of Galdren's black plains, near the rusted husks of fallen skyships. The fire flickered low, casting shadows that danced across her blue skin. She sat across from him, still wrapped in the human's coat, her eyes reflecting the flames. He handed her a flask of clean water. "Drink." She sniffed it, cautious, then drank in long, desperate gulps. He offered her dried protein bread next, and she devoured it in silence. "You got a name?" he asked. She hesitated, and then, for the first time, she spoke. Her voice rough and melodic, like wind through cracked glass. "I was called Aria." "Aria," he repeated. "That's a good name." She tilted her head. "Why did you pay so much?" He poked at the fire. "Because I saw something in you they didn't." "What did you see?" He looked at her, eyes serious. "A survivor." In the weeks that followed, Arya traveled with the human, whose name was Kellen. He taught her how to filter water, how to fire a pulse weapon, how to lie convincingly when needed, and how to fix a hoverbike using nothing but scrap and sheer will. But more importantly, he taught her that she was not a thing. She was a person, and she learned fast, too fast. By the time they reached the border cities of Drossel Prime, Arya could outshoot half the mercenaries in the taverns. Her blue skin no longer marked her as something to gawk at, but something to fear or respect. One night, after a skirmish with raiders left them licking wounds under a flickering neon sign, Kellen sat beside her on a broken transport crate. "You're not ordinary," he said. "No," she agreed. "You remember where you're from?" She hesitated, then nodded. "It was a sanctuary once, a place of learning. My kind had abilities, not magic, but connectedness. We could feel things, heal, sense truth. But they came, stripped our temples, burned our voices. I ran. They found me near the rift." "Who were they?" She turned her gaze toward the stars. "The ones who fear what they don't understand." Callan grunted, a tale as old as time. Months passed. Together, they made a name. Arya was no longer a castaway sold for flies. She was Kellen's equal, his partner, his guardian, his shadow. She saved his life twice on Karos Delta and once in the acidic rains of Vurian Gorge. Still, whispers grew. Rumors of a blue-skinned woman with eyes that could sense lies. A woman who once touched a dying child and brought him back. She had power, she had purpose, and others wanted it. They came for her in the dead of night, black-cloaked hunters from the syndicate, merciless, armed, paid handsomely. Kellen and Arya fought, but they were outnumbered. She was taken in chains, sedated, loaded onto a ship bound for the core worlds. Kellen barely escaped with his life. It took him 6 weeks to find her again. 6 weeks of tracking whispers, bribing informants, breaking through syndicate vaults, and braving orbital mines. He found her in a gilded cell on a private moon, on display for the elite, like a rare animal in a museum of flesh. She sat just as she had once sat in the market, knees drawn, head bowed. But when he broke open her cell and knelt beside her, she looked up, not with despair, but with quiet fire. "You came," she whispered. "I paid once," he said, voice rough. "But now I'm here to take." They burned the place to ash. Together, she unleashed the full force of what she'd hidden, the power in her blood, her mind, her voice. Walls melted, guards fell to their knees, weeping with forgotten memories. Kellen covered her flank with rifle bursts and grenades that sang like thunder. When they walked away from the wreckage, no one followed. Back on Geldran, the marketplace still bustled. But this time, when they walked through, all fell silent. The same merchant who once sold her for flies stumbled back behind his cart. Arya looked at him, expression unreadable. Yes, she did not speak. Kellen did. You sold her for 5 credits, he said softly, but what you threw away changed the stars. He took Arya's hand. They walked on. This time, she held her head high. Not a single fly landed on her skin, because now the galaxy knew her worth.